Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Raising Cane studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hour 2, Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Immense. Sharief, Ishaq, talking Saints in 30 minutes. 15 minutes from right now, I will tell you the change that I was made aware of yesterday within the LSU athletic department that they're going to push forward with, and it helps answer a question that I posed last week on this show. So we'll talk about that coming up in 15 minutes. ESPN.com had a couple of NFL draft stories up on their homepage today for the NFL side of things. And they married together quite nicely for the New Orleans Saints. And I wanted to discuss them here, first individually and then bringing them together, as I think it's apt to do. The first was a piece that took the top 20 prospects in the upcoming NFL draft and named the best fit for those players at teams. And I didn't have to scroll very long to get to the player they identified that would be the best fit with the New Orleans Saints in the draft. It's a player that we're all very, very familiar with, but I've not spent a lot of time talking about him. It's Rueben Bain from Miami. 6'2", which is a little undersized for that edge rushing position, 263 pounds. So in terms of measurables, not off the charts, especially with length, but in terms of production, in terms of the tape, unbelievable. I have not seen a defensive player impact consecutive games like Bain did in that college football playoff run probably since Tyrann Mathieu. And Ndamukong Suh comes to mind as well. At the biggest moment in College Station, in Dallas against Ohio State, in the Ole Miss game, Bain was a menace against some big boy programs. And he's going to be paid handsomely for it. The question is, will that be by the Saints? And the other piece that I was looking at that will tie in here is the new mock draft that was put out by Matt Miller. And he's got the Saints at 8, selecting David Bailey, another edge from Texas Tech. The blurb for Bailey, if you're less familiar with him, is if you want an impact playmaker off the edge, look no further than Bailey. 23 tackles for loss, 14 and a half sacks this year. Another monster productivity season at the college level. And both of them believe that this is the best fit for New Orleans. And it's interesting because I know that if you draft Jordan Tyson or you draft Carnell Tate, I know where they plug in immediately at wide receiver. If you were to draft Jeremiah Love previous to the signing of Achin, I know where he slots in. It was obvious what was going to happen with Taliesin Fuaga. It was obvious what was going to happen the following year with Kelvin Banks. We knew where those guys were headed. If you take one of these defensive ends, I look at the Saints front and I go, well, yeah, Cam Jordan's still up in flux, but Carl Granderson is still under contract and Chase Young is still under contract, and those guys are pretty good. So it's not an immediate need for the first snap of the first game. Like when you took Taliesin Fuaga 2 years ago, for the first snap of the first game, he was in need. When you took Kelvin Banks, for the first snap of the first game, he was in need. And if you took one of those wide receivers and you look at the receivers that you've got, for the first snap of the first game, that's a need. For the first snap of the first game, I don't know if David Bailey or Rueben Bain is a plug and play as a starter. But you look at this and you realize that Granderson signed a 4-year deal And you're looking at 2 more years left on that deal. Chase Young signed a 3-year deal last year and has 2 more years left on that deal. And you look at age, and you're looking at Gray Anderson at 30. Chase Young is going to be 27 this year. And I start to think about it, and I go, okay, this makes sense. You need rotational defensive ends. If you find a hot hand, ride it. If you have an injury, you need depth. And Cam Jordan played behind those 2 guys last year and had 10 sacks. Now, I don't know if Cam's going to be back or not. And I don't know if Cam Jordan's decision impacts the Saints' pick here. I'll tell you what I feel about that. It should not. I don't need to base my first-round draft choice, a player that I need to hit on in what I hope will be my last time picking in the top 10 in the draft for a few years. I got to hit on that guy as a starter, as a potential Pro Bowl player, as a potential All-Pro player. And I'm not changing my mind on that pick based on whether or not a 37, 38-year-old comes back for another year to be a rotational defensive end. That should not enter the equation. In that way, you are looking at the long term, not the short term. It's a first-round pick. You got him under contract for 4+ years. Like, I'm not basing my pick on what Cam Jordan decides to do. Now, that player's role, Bailey or Bain's role on the 2026 team, may be tweaked a bit depending on what Cam Jordan's role is. But that's what I'll adjust to that when that time comes. I think this is fine. I'm having a hard time finding spots that I think the Saints need to avoid with this 8th pick because I believe there are so many players at so many positions the Saints need to upgrade on. So, yeah, like, best case scenario, you take one of these 2 guys and Chase Young and Carl Granderson play at an elite level and their role is a little bit diminished in year 1 and maybe they emerge in year 2. But by the time year 3 rolls around and that player's still on a rookie contract, who knows if Chase Young and or Carl Granderson are around. And that's just when Tyler Shuck is hitting his complete stride. And I am going to base some of my thinking around that. So, yeah, it's not a first snap of the first game thing like maybe the wide receivers would be. Like maybe it would be if you took Caleb Downs. Like it would have been potentially if you took Jeremiah Love and hadn't gone and gotten HN. Like, yeah, maybe. And maybe not in this instance. But that doesn't scare me off the pick. And I do believe those 2 guys are fits. I'm not here to tell you which of those 2 guys is better. I'm not here to tell you which of those 2 guys fits better in a Brandon Staley scheme. I'm here to assess a plan, not a player. The plan in taking one of these guys, if you determine this front office, which hit on draft picks last year, determines that this is the position and these are the 2 guys and this guy's ranked ahead of this guy. They're both on the board. I want that guy. I'm good with Bain, and I'm good if you want to shop in Lubbock too. You can't go wrong with the production that Bain and Bailey had, and you trust your evaluation guys to get it right, assuming they're both there. It's not as fun as a wide receiver, but it's pretty fun. Because you have to get to the passer. And I think that Carl Granderson and Chase Young will play good football this year. I think if they bring back Cam Jordan, he will be a net positive for New Orleans, assuming the deal is 1 year and a reasonable expense. And I have no reason to believe it won't be based on the lack of a market there appears to be for him. I'm not scared of taking Bailey or Bain. It's not an and there. Taking Bailey or Bain just because I've got Chase Young, Carl Granderson, and then Cam Jordan on line 1. Because there's a longer play here, and you need depth at that position. There's a thought in one of these blurbs that perhaps you could bump someone inside and play all 3 of those guys in pass rush situations. If Brandon Staley wants to do that, great. Brian Brzee is also an impact pass rusher from the interior. You could create a pretty fierce pass rush with that group of players, and that's obviously a crucial piece to closing out games and winning them. I like David Bailey. I like Ruben Bain. I have not, as I said, I have not seen a college football player on the defensive side do the things that Bain has done in some time. It was impressive. And if that's the guy they want to take, I'm good with it. We'll see. But it's interesting to me that 2 different guys same website, but two different angles. One's a straight mock. One is best fit for the players. Landed on the same position with the Saints, and it wasn't one of the two that I've talked about more. What do you think, Jordan?
I think, listen, what helps a defense the most, especially I think we can all agree that the Saints' weakness on defense is the secondary at this point. Out of the linebackers and the edge and the D line, I think we can say Kool-Aid and the boys out there are not the strongest suit of this defense. So what else helps a secondary that doesn't cover the best? A great pass rush. So if the Saints want to lean into that, help them out, ease that pressure off, because I still think you need to bring some more bodies into that room. Ease that pressure off. You go with the pass rusher if he falls to you. I just think that you are playing with house money, and the draft is so far away that we can sit here and talk about any player at this point at the 8th spot and be like, yeah, I can see a world where this guy is a hole that fixes this, because the Saints, they are in a luxury position, and like you said, this should be the last time you're picking in the top 10 for some time, so it needs to be a hit.
I'm looking at guys they could take that I would go, I'm not real sure about that.
Offensive line.
Offensive line is probably it. That like Fano from Utah.
Yeah, please no.
There's a pick right behind them, Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end from Oregon, who's a physical freak.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the spot I would go.
Kyle Pitts, no sir.
Yeah. So I think edge rusher makes a lot of sense. We'll see if that's where the Saints decide to go. Tomorrow, I'll be able to say at the end of this month. for right now, next month. We'll have to see how that goes. When we come back, what's LSU planning to do differently? And does it alleviate some of my sincere concerns with the athletic department moving forward? I'll tell you about it next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets, onebathandclosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. And closet space is just not something I considered very much. Purchased a home in a place that I loved. And then my wife-to-be, girlfriend at the time, moved in, and she looked at the closets and went, this is just not going to get it. I never thought about it. We could have called One Bath and Closets and get that done, but we knew that kids were coming, we were going to move, and so we waited and prioritized closet space in our move. You don't have to move to get new closets. David Duvall and his team can do it. They are a licensed contractor. They can come in and create a new closet for you, customized to your specifications. Maybe that's what you want to do. Maybe you have closet space, but you just don't feel you're using it properly. That's something David can identify as well. He'll start you with a questionnaire, kind of see what it is you're looking for, what you have, and he'll just get that clutter out of your life. It could be a game changer for you in your home. It could also add some value to that home. Let David come in and show you what he can do. You can start at the website, onebathandclosets.com, and see the customized closets that he has done and just how good they look. And if you're looking for financing options, they've got them 0% up to 18 months as well. Trust David to do this. He'll do it right the first time and leave the competition behind. It's One Bath and Closets. You can find them online at onebathandclosets.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
I invite you every day to go take a tour over at Marucci. Such a cool story here in Baton Rouge. It's a worldwide company at this point, but its roots are here in Baton Rouge. And in Baton Rouge, they make 1,200 bats a day. If you want to go see where they make those bats, where they finish those bats, go take a tour at Marucci. If you want to hear the story of how they went from a backyard shed to the official bat of Major League Baseball in 2 decades, go take a tour. You get a ticket at maruccisports.com/campus-tour. Every ticket for the tour comes with a 20% discount in the campus tour store and in the hitter's house. It's a great place to go take some swings if you got a youth baseball or softball player in your house, but it's a cool place to go learn, too, about a true gem that we have here in Baton Rouge. The official bat of Major League Baseball. I'm watching the Cubs nightly at this point. Turn them on again this evening. Marucci bats right on the screen. What a cool thing to have here in Baton Rouge. Go take a tour. Check them out online at maruccisports.com/campus-tour. That is our friends at Marucci. Okay. If you listen daily or you saw this cut up on social media from me last week, I have questions. I would not say concerns. I would say sincere questions about the functionality of an athletic department when it comes to the dollars and cents these days. You've got just north of $20 million to divide amongst your athletic programs in revenue sharing. That does not count name, image, and likeness deals. It's revenue sharing that the university shares with its athletes. And you can cut that pie up any way you want. We know that football is going to take a monster piece of that. And we know that Will Wade is going to expect the proper resources to run an SEC basketball program near the top of the conference. Whether or not he wins at that level remains to be seen. He will expect the resources that give him the ability to do that. We know the same goes for Kim Mulkey. LSU will invest in women's basketball. She demands it. And we know that Jay Johnson is at the top of the sport in college baseball, and that program needs money. So you've got these four big personalities in Lane Kiffin, Will Wade, Kim Mulkey, Jay Johnson. They've been successful coaches here or elsewhere. And the revenue sharing piece to this is finite. So you have to determine how you're going to cut up the revenue sharing. The NIL is not finite. The revenue sharing is. You have to cut the pie a certain way. There is a mandated limit on how many funds you can share in revenue with the student athletes. And the schools have to decide how to make that work. And so the almost certainty is that you cannot cut that pie and make all four of those happy. Like, I can't imagine that being a situation because everybody's always going to think they need a little bit more. So you've got a situation where maybe somebody's happy, maybe two people are okay, maybe one person's a little cranky, depending on the year, depending on how you slice things up, depending on how recruiting's going. Like, that's true in almost any circumstance. But this one's easy to see. So now you have to go out and get additional funds to make everybody happy. You can't make everybody happy just with rev share. But if you go out and you raise money and you work with NILSU and you work with Nike and you work with all the corporate partners that LSU has and you make things work financially, then everybody can be happy. Well, how are you going to do that? That was my question last week. How are you, LSU, going to? Because I look around the league and I look at Alabama, who doesn't give a rip about baseball and doesn't give a rip about women's basketball. Okay? I look at Arkansas, who is not any good at football, but they're bankrolling baseball and basketball on the men's side. I look at Mississippi State, which has drastically reduced the football investment and pumped it into baseball. Like, you can see how athletic departments are moving things around like that, right? And so I look at that and I go, well, what's LSU going to do? That's my question. And yesterday, you got something of an answer from Verge Osbury. And in fact, because he was there asking the questions, Michael Cauble said it on this show. And then I didn't know where he was getting that from, but now it's obvious that Verge Osbury said it because I went back and listened to the press conference, which I wasn't able to go to because of the show. And now I understand that LSU is making a shift in the way it handles its athletic programs when it comes to resources and finances. We know that Heath Schroyer has been brought in to help run basketball. He's a former basketball coach. He's a former athletic director at a place that demands that you go out and raise funds to have any sort of success whatsoever. If you just let McNeese run on its own, they don't have any resources. You got to go get people involved, get people interested, go raise money. And Heath Schroyer and Will Wade did that. So now they're in charge of doing that for men's basketball. Heath Schroyer, Will Wade, go get it done. Clay Harris is going to be in charge of that for football. Now, football drives the bus, and Verge Osbury will be right there helping. But Clay Harris and Verge Osbury for football, they're in charge of getting the money from the people. And Zach Greenwell is going to help baseball and women's basketball, according to Verge Osbury. He's in charge of going to run the money. Verge Osbury said yesterday, LSU Athletics is a charity. We have to go, and the term he used was beat the streets. We got to go get money. And here's what I feel. Will Wade has got no problem shaking hands, kissing babies, finding cash. He has done it in multiple places. He knows what he's doing, and he's very comfortable working with Heath Schroyer doing that. Okay, check. Football is a big deal. Clay Harris is a big deal. Verge Osbury has football in his DNA. Verge Osbury said yesterday, football is 98% of the budget around here. That's a non-negotiable. We got to win. We got to raise money. Clay Harris, Verge Osbury, go. And Jay Johnson is very comfortable beating the streets and finding cash. And Kim Mulkey is very comfortable beating the streets and finding cash. And Zach Greenwell is going to help them do that. Because there comes a point in time where Kim Mulkey's got to go get players, got to coach players, got to develop players, got to game plan, got to scout, got to coach games. Jay Johnson's got to go recruit players. He's got to handle the transfer portal. He's got to develop hitters. He's got to hire a pitching coach. He's got to go scout and win games. So while they're doing that, you need somebody in charge of handling money. And if you just put one person in charge, hey, go run the collective. Well, that's a lot. And that's another situation where you're going to have 50 different coaches pulling it in 50 different directions, and one person, that's not going to work. Well, if you create different silos here, and you create different people that have that interest at heart, and you let Verge kind of run the top of it, okay, that is a plan. The execution of it, we'll have to see. That is a plan. Essentially, I've been in sales 2 different times, insurance and radio, and I think a lot of people have been in sales at one point or another. And you got a bunch of salespeople, and that's what I think Schroyer and Greenwell and Harris basically are. And you've got a sales manager, which is Verge. And it's very common for sales managers to go out on calls and to, cultivate relationships and help make the cash register ring. And that's Verge's role in this as well. He will be focused more on football. But now you've got a different person in charge of fundraising for the major sports on campus. And I'm not here to disrespect tennis or disrespect golf or disrespect track, but these are the revenue drivers. These are the brand creators. Verge said this yesterday. Yeah, women's basketball loses money here. But what that program does for our brand is important. For enrollment, for revenues, it's important. We will fund it. And so these are the chief sports that have to be funded. And I still have questions about the viability of being really good at everything. But I'll tell you this, as I said last week on this show, Verge Osbury came on this radio station, told Matt Moscona it's really expensive to be good at everything. And yesterday, in his press conference, he said, we want to be good at everything. So there has been a shift in how this thing is going to run. That doesn't give me an insight as to how much money is available to everybody and whether or not Schroyer and Greenwell and Harris are going to the same people for the same ask and the people have to decide. Like, that part is inside baseball, and nobody's coming to me for money. So I don't know exactly how that works. But I'm comforted in knowing that there is a plan afoot and that they're not planning on neglecting anything. Because I look around the league, there are plenty of programs being neglected. There are programs being neglected. Jimmy said this, I would have never known it. Bama's women's basketball coach left for South Florida. That's an indication. Bama said, we're funding football. We are funding men's basketball big time. Their baseball team's playing better now, but we don't have, that's 3. We don't have room for the 4th. Mississippi State has basically said, we can win at baseball. We're going to create a machine. And they spent a bajillion on this baseball team. Way more than LSU. Way more. And so you got to kind of make a call. And there are very few that have got them all cooking. Like Tennessee's doing okay. They're not at the top of anything. And women's basketball's taking a big fall. And their baseball doesn't look nearly as good without Vitello. And basketball can't quite get over the hump. And football's still good. Florida got to the top of the mountain in basketball. And their baseball teams had some recent success. But football's been dragging. It's hard to find. I mean, Texas A&M's women's basketball team's atrocious. It's hard to find the team that's got it all cooking. Texas has a lot of money, and they're cooking pretty well. Their football team's been good. Their baseball team is excellent. Their men's basketball team, year one under a new coach, and women's basketball is very good. Like, Texas has a lot of cash, and they've done a pretty good job of it. We'll see if LSU can do it. But it was good yesterday for me personally to hear that there's a shift and a plan in how we're going to do this. The execution of that, that's up to them to get it done. And I do know that you've got 4 coaches that are willing to put in the work. And as I said, when LSU was looking for Lane Kiffin or looking for a football coach, looking for a basketball coach, if you come to LSU and you put in a lot of work, the results across campus suggest you can get it done. If those 4 can get it done at the same time, that'd be a massive feather in the cap of Virgil Osbury and this entire athletic department. We'll see how it goes. All right, we'll come back, talk some Saints with Sharief Ishaq next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Fabry Chevrolet GMC, FabryChevrolet.com. That's FabryChevrolet.com. It's a short drive to St. Francisville from Baton Rouge. My wife and I were up there 3 weeks ago for our anniversary. Had an awesome weekend up there. It's just a hop, skip, and a jump. It's even closer if you're north of town in Zachary or Baker, Scotlandville, or if you're over in Point Capee, New Rose area by False River. Of course, you're in the Felicianas. You know where to head. Highway 61 in St. Francisville. Go see the Fabrys. They've been in this town for 35 years. And the only reason you can make it 35 years is if you know what you're doing, you treat people the right way. And that's what the Fabry family has been doing for 3 decades. You can be next. A wonderful buying experience, great service after the sale as well. And you'll be thrilled with the deals. Up to $11,000 off a Silverado, up to $13,000 off a GMC Sierra, 0.0 APR financing. Maybe you're looking for an SUV for that family road trip coming up this summer. Yukon, Denali, Tahoe, Suburban. They got them on Highway 61 in St. Francisville at Fabry Chevrolet GMC. You can find them online at FabryChevrolet.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Tuesday shows every week brought to you by Immense. Find them at immense.net, immense.net. Sharief Ishaq, WDSU down in New Orleans. Good enough to give us some time here on Tuesday. Sharief, how are you?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing quite well. How do we feel about the Saints wide receivers if they don't draft one in the first round?
If they don't, let me clarify this. If they don't draft one in the first or second round, it's not going to look good. It's not going to look good, I don't think. I think they need to find a way to make that happen in the first or second round.
What are they short on talent? Are they short on depth? Are they short on talent and depth? Why do you say that?
I think they're short on, I think, talented depth. We can combine the words. They have Devon, they have Chris, then they have Jalen Polk, they have Mason Tipton, but I just don't see those guys after Chris and Devon being, difference makers. They got to find another difference maker in that receivers room, and I think that whether if it's Carnell Tate, Jordan Tyson, Malachi Lemon, or even in the second round going after Tyler Shuck's former Louisville teammate Chris Bell, they have to find another guy who can be a difference maker, who can create separation, contested catches. I don't think they have that on the roster after the first 2 guys. And, I mean, you saw how the depth got beat up, and yes, Tyler Shuck was able to make it work with the other guys, but you don't want to have to play that game of making it work with other guys whenever you're trying to, rebuild this franchise and contend. So I think it would be a massive fail, a massive fail if they don't get one with the 8th pick or the 42nd pick.
So do you believe that the Saints can be a division champion and a threat in the NFC with Chris Olave leading the team in catches and yards?
And that's such an interesting question. I do not. I do not. I think if it was more spread out with top 3 players in terms of receivers, I would think it'd be beneficial for them to not have Chris Olave being the number 1 guy with 107 catches or something between 97 and 107 catches and all the yards. It'd be nice to see him at 90 catches, 1,100 yards, 8, 9 touchdowns. You'd like to see it spread out a little bit, Hunt. You don't want him to be the constant guy and getting double teamed if you don't have another guy on the roster, another 2 guys on the roster. So I don't think so. That, just in my opinion, I think that having one receiver doesn't necessarily make the Saints, even in a very bad division, contenders. I just think you got to have more than one. It can't just be Chris leading the way and, hoping that you can contend for the NFC South. I truly, genuinely think there needs to be another go-to guy on that roster.
What did Devon Bailey show you before he got hurt?
Man, look, I like his length, his ability to make contested catches. That's what we've said for the previous years before they got Bailey on the roster. I mean, we laughed about the Saints giving up a 4th and 7th, and then realized whenever he started playing, okay, maybe it was worth the 4th and 7th round pick. Having a big guy like that is great. I mean, you need somebody who can go in traffic. You need somebody who can go on 3rd down and go get you that 1st down, which he did quite a few times when he was out there on the field with Tyler Sharief running the offense. And that was one of the missing pieces they needed in terms of developing Tyler Sharief and developing that passing game. And I think that, that's a number 2 receiver. That's exactly what you want from a number 2 receiver. I don't want to make a comparison, but you saw Marcus Colson do a lot of that in the times with Drew Brees, getting down there, making those catches down the field, taking the hits, and getting those 1st downs. And I can see that with Bailey. I wish we could have seen more with Tyler and Devon, but it just wasn't the case because of the injury. So I think they're set there with 1 and 2. So I like that Bailey had, was brought along in the offense, and I think a lot of us would say he's, going to continue to grow.
There's a report that the Saints worked out Zachariah Branch, who was at USC when LSU played him a couple of years ago, was at Georgia this past year. He's on the smaller side. He's really fast. He's got kick returning ability. He is the advanced version of Mason Tipton, but he is not a big-bodied wide receiver, a big-bodied target. He is sub 6 feet tall. If they decided that was a guy they wanted to bring in based on his skill set, would you be okay with that?
I've gone back and forth on it because with Chris not being that big of a guy and Tipton not being that big of a guy, I feel like me personally, not my offense obviously, but I would want somebody who's in that 6'2" range who can get down the field. Now, I am a big fan of Carnell Tate, but just because I'm a big fan of Carnell Tate doesn't mean he's going to be there at number 8, and it doesn't mean that if he's there at number 8, the Saints are going to take him. I mean, I would definitely do it, and they've had success with Ohio State receivers, with Chris as well as Michael Thomas. So, I mean, it doesn't hurt. To me, speed kills. We know that. Speed kills in the NFL, and we've seen what Kellen Moore's offenses have looked like with different skill set players in terms of the receivers. And, yeah, it could work. But I would like to see them get a big body guy who could put him down the field with some speed. So that's why I lean toward a guy like Carnell Tate if he's there at number 8, or even Chris Bell if he's there in the 2nd round. Look, Branch, there's nothing wrong with him. He's a good player. But you're essentially having almost the same type of player, a speedy guy who can, zigzag and get down the field. I just want somebody who can do a little bit of everything.
Sharief Ishaq is our guest, WDSU down in New Orleans. Kellen Moore out at the owners, GM's meetings this week said that he loves Alvin, expects him to be on the team. It was kind of a non-committal answer, but more than he gave 2 weeks ago when asked kind of the same question. How much do you think Kamara factors into the passing game for this Saints team, especially if he's not the number 1 back? You signed one of those.
Look, I kind of wish Kellen Moore would have said that 2 weeks ago instead of saying it yesterday, but it's good for him to get out in front of it and say the actual, hey, he's under contract. We are happy to have him on a team. So I say you look at him as a number 2 running back. Yeah, he can help out in the passing game, throw him in the slots. Maybe not, not give him so many carries. Just keep him fresh for if he's on the roster, which I think should be on the roster. You can keep him fresh, man. You can use him in so many different ways. I understand the age thing, but if you can just limit his touches and carries and use him in very opportunistic part of the field and opportunistic downs, I think it works. I think it works in the passing game. For a while, he was really good in the passing game, and you could line him up in the slot, and he could beat a linebacker in any route. And I still think he has some of that. So I think I really would like to see them use that to their advantage this season, now that they have Travis on the roster. And, of course, they still have the other guys behind Travis and Alvin if Alvin remains on the roster. But don't put it past them to get another running back. I know they got a bunch of guys, but they see somebody good in the draft in the 4th or 5th round, maybe they add another guy. I mean, I've seen mock drafts that have still taken another running back.
It's interesting. I'm curious to see how this offense finally shakes out after the draft is behind us. Sharief, we got just one more question here for you. We'll move on from the Saints. Pelicans kind of looked good for a while there, and now they've lost 5 in a row. You got 2 weeks to play. What is left on the string here for the next 2 weeks, and do we see some wholesale changes coming at the end of it?
I think it's just like, let's just go ahead and sim all the way to the end of the season.
Yep.
Honestly, I mean, just avoid not getting injured, avoid some of your stars staying healthy. I mean, keeping your stars healthy. And I'm anxious to see if anybody gets shut down. I want to see if any of these star players shut down, if they're going to play these final few games of the regular season. And I think there's a little bit of pride, obviously, to show that, like, James Brago, he's probably obviously coaching for his job.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's going to get the job. I personally think it's going to be someone else. But that's what we're looking at. And as for wholesale changes, Hunt, you can't keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. It's time. They have to figure out which player or players don't work. And to me, it's crazy to think he's played most of the season. Zion Williamson is probably the guy you have to trade, and maybe even Herb Jones, in order to get this ball rolling once again and get the pieces that you need in order to make this work. Because I still think they need an athletic big. They need an athletic big and one more wing probably. So I see changes coming. I mean, you can't sit around and tell me, oh, let's run it back again for, the 8th season, and the same thing happens again. So
Yeah.
I think changes are going to come.
We'll see in a couple of weeks. Sharief Ishaq, WDSU down in New Orleans. Thanks, man.
All right, boot up.
Boot up, he says, as Will Wade back in town. I'll give you a second on that, Jordan. I saw a tweet earlier this week that was like, look, Zion Williamson stayed healthy all year. He scored at a nice clip. He shot a high percentage.
Please.
And no, the point is, like, he did everything you kind of expect him to do, and the team won 24 games. Like, then what's the point? Like, get him out of here.
Yeah. No, get him out of here. There is nothing left to be said about Zion Williamson and his time in New Orleans. Nothing left to be said about this Pelicans team. You're going into year 8 next season, no playoffs, not even coming close. It would have been different if the Pelicans were knocking at the door. You're not even knocking at the door. You're asking for a ride to get to the party. You can't even get to the party. You don't even have a chance of even walking up to the door of the party and being like, hey, man, I know a guy in there maybe. You're not even close. You're not close this year. You wasn't close last year. It needs to be blown up. I don't know why they keep trying to run this core through the mud. Like, we've seen teams in the NBA have less time together with better results, and they're gone. Memphis Grizzlies have been significantly better than the Pelicans the last 5 years, and that core is gone draft picks at this point. I'm tired.
Look, to the point I made, like, Zion, 52 games, which is a good amount. His 2 weeks left. He shot 60% from the floor, averaged 20 points a game. You won 25 games.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just not – there's nothing positive about that. He's done what he can do. It's not a what if. Like, what if he – no, he's played plenty, and they don't win. So –
he's got to go.
I would agree with that.
Hunt, he's one of the only, I think it was 1 or 2 number 1 overall picks that have never played a playoff game. He's one of them. And other guys like some bust. I think it's like Anthony Bennett or something.
Anthony Bennett's got to be.
I'm about to say it has to be Anthony Bennett. So,
got to be.
Like, it's nasty.
All right. We'll come back and close it out next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com, HighlandIG.com. Commercial, property, and casualty insurance. Go with the guys at Highland Insurance Group. I've had the pleasure of sitting down with them on multiple occasions and talking some insurance. They really know their stuff. And if what you've done with your business is just hand the business of your insurance to the guy who walked in and just had the lowest price tag on the back page of the proposal, it's one way to do it, but do you know what's on the inside of that proposal? Do you know what's on the inside of those policies? Do you know that you're being properly covered? You should be able to trust your insurance agent, not just pick the guy, not just pick the gal with the lowest price. They're going to take care of you from a price perspective, the Highland Insurance Group. They know that's important, but they're also going to make sure your coverage is right, from EPL insurance, crime insurance, building valuations, umbrella limits, what you need for your directors and officers insurance. No matter what the line of coverage is, they've got a carrier that knows your line of work and can make sure that you're placed properly. So if you've never truly analyzed your policy and want a second set of eyes on it just to make sure that you're properly covered as a business, check with Jonathan Carbo and his team at the Highland Insurance Group. They're online at highlandig.com.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Remind you of our friends at Immense. Incredible to work with on the IT side of things. When you think IT, you probably just think about a computer freezing up. Can you help me? You may think about your IT person who's constantly overwhelmed, which happens. If that's the case, think about Immense. Talking about a complete revamp of your IT with some support. They can help your current IT staff. They don't have to replace your IT staff, but they can help. They can help with QuickBooks and Salesforce and other CRMs. They can allow your IT staff to be a little bit more flexible and focus on things a little bit more while they handle other issues. A lot of times people in business don't even know there's an issue with their IT. But if you've got Immense monitoring your IT 24/7, 365, they'll be able to protect it so you can keep things running. Last thing you want to worry about is information technology. You want to worry about your business. Let Immense handle your IT. No contracts. They're just here to help. If you got 50 to 100 employees, that's really their sweet spot at Immense. They're based here out of Baton Rouge. They can help you out from Lake Charles to Mandeville. If you've just got one IT person that's constantly overwhelmed, check in with Immense and see if that's a great fit for you. Find them online at immense.net, immense.net. All right, take it or leave it.
I'll take it.
I'll take it, Mitch.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
Today's hottest stories in sports, news, and sometimes even Hunt's life. The question is, will he take them or leave them?
Hunt, I hope you have seen the video yet with Coach Dan Hurley and the referee after the game with the headbutt.
I have.
Seen it? All right, so the referee, Roger Ayers, he was involved in that bizarre situation. He is not among the referees assigned to officiate the Final Four, so not calling a tech on Hurley in that situation cost him this opportunity. Take it or leave it.
I'll leave it. That's certainly not why he wasn't. I don't know if you know this about me or not, Jordan. I am so anti-technical. I am so anti-ejection.
Okay.
I don't care at all about the emotional well-being of the umpires and referees. Now, physical contact is different, and I will absolutely grant that. And there are instances where you have to give a technical or you have to throw somebody out. If a baseball manager simply will not leave the field of play, he must be ejected. Yeah. If somebody throws a punch in a basketball game, you got to go. But I just go nuts when somebody says something from the dugout or bench and we're throwing people out left and right. Like in LSU baseball's national final against Coastal Carolina, the Coastal coach is talking from 35 feet away and is ejected in the biggest game of his life. I cannot reconcile that. Now, this is a little bit different because there was contact, but I applaud the official for not giving a technical. I think that's great.
100%. This guy has balls of steel because Hurley do that. And hey, what?
Yeah.
Headbutt me right now in this situation? Come on, man. All right, so Coach Aaron Glenn says he sees Geno Smith in a different light. He says, I feel like Geno's the guy that's going to lead us to the promised land.
I heard that.
So is Geno leading the Jets to the promised land? Take it or leave it?
I'm going to leave that. Jesus himself. I mean, he's coming soon. We got Easter coming up this weekend.
Coming back.
That may be the guy you need under center, taking the snaps for the Jets if we're going to make that happen. Mark Sanchez just about got there.
Yeah.
But no, I don't know that Geno Smith's going to be getting the Jets to the promised land. But I appreciate Coach Glenn for giving the quote.
So what if he means the promised land like the number one pick? Like he might be able to lead us to the promised land and get the number one pick. We saw the Raiders.
That may happen.
You know?
He's so bad, we're going to get our next quarterback thanks to him. Now, that's thinking outside the box. I can appreciate that. Perhaps that's more in line with what Coach Glenn was talking about. But I would submit that if the Jets are the worst team in the league in year 2 under Aaron Glenn, he may not be making the pick. So we'll see.
So that's it for Take It or Leave It?
That's it for Take It or Leave It, huh? Such a busy day. So much content afoot. This is my favorite time of year. We got spring football. We talked about it. LSU's got a new basketball coach. We talked about it. LSU's got a baseball team in action tonight. We talked about it. NFL drafts coming up. We talked about it. There's so much to cover from this perspective that it's a fun show. If you missed any of our LSU stuff, Hunt on LSU is where you can find it. Missed any of our Saints stuff, including who they may be drafting, Hunt on Saints is always a handy spot to follow things on YouTube. Tigers and Southern tonight from the box. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Sports trivia at Court to Table tonight at 8 o'clock. Come on out and see us. Matt's going to drive you home next. We're back tomorrow. Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Lifetime Roofing, lifetimeroofingla.com. Lifetimeroofingla.com is that website. Look, let Lifetime Roofing come inspect your roof if you think you may have an issue. Whether you think you may have an issue because you've got issues with your electric bill, if you think you got an issue because there's dripping and there's water, whatever reason you think you've got an issue, let Lifetime Roofing come check it out. They're not going to just come in and say, hey, most expensive thing we got's a new roof, so you're up. No, they're going to expect it. If it just needs a repair, they'll do the repair. If it just needs to be fortified, maybe just a tune-up, they'll do the tune-up. And if it is a new roof, they're happy to help you out with that. And with that comes a lifetime workmanship warranty. Lifetime workmanship warranty. That includes, of course, the workmanship, but as well as the materials, which are backed by CertainTeed. You're looking for financing, 0% up to 18 months. So you're getting that workmanship warranty. You're also getting the financing. Go with Lifetime Roofing. Check them out online at lifetimeroofingla.com. Lifetimeroofingla.com.